So we've got edges, we've got vertices. You can see I've made them pretty large at the moment. We've got borders, which currently we don't actually have, and that's because for a border you need an open set of faces. So as an example, if I select these faces here and just delete them, you can see we've got a hole in our teapot now, and that's what editable poly means when you see the name border. So if we click on border and we click near the edge here, I'll turn on wireframe. You can see it's actually selected all of those edges around that hole there, so it's actually selected that border. Then we've got polygons. As you can see, you can select individual polygons, or you can marquee select them. And then we have element, and that only actually makes sense when you've actually joined a number of objects together. And 3ds Max actually remembers the various parts of the object that made it up, and in that way you can actually select the different elements. Now the teapot's a special object in some ways, in that it's actually already made up of separate elements. So you can see I can actually select the teapot lid, the body, the spout, the handle, and so on. So this particular object has got these geometric sub object types, but other modifiers may have other types of sub objects. For instance, some modifiers have gizmos, they have pivot points, they may have control vertices that you can use to deform an object, and so on and so forth. And in each case you'll always have this little plus sign next to any modifiers with sub objects, and you can click on that plus sign and actually access each one of those subtypes. Now in the case of the edit poly modifier, you can also see that we have these buttons here, and each one of these actually corresponds to clicking on each one of these sub elements here. So I can actually go into vertex mode, edge mode, border, polygon, and element by clicking on these buttons here. And if we pop open this menu, you can see that the selection is actually just corresponding there. So that's another quick shortcut to actually getting into the sub elements of editable poly. And on the end of the name here, you can see we've got this little light bulb, and what that allows us to do is actually turn off the modifier, turn it off or turn it on, obviously. And it's just as simple as clicking on that button, and that will actually turn off that modifier. Now it may not be that visible what I've actually done there at the moment, so if I turn it back on again, we'll go into sub-object mode. I'll grab these vertices here and I'll pull them up here. I'll pull these down here, and I'll grab these top vertices here and pull that up. So we've got a bit more sort of obvious effect going on here. Now if I go back to the button, I'll just turn it off again, and as you can see, the effect of that modifier is turned off at that point. So it's a very simple muting switch which you can use to just disable that modifier temporarily. So let's add on another modifier to our stack. In this case we'll go for a bend modifier, and you can see again we've got this plus sign, and that indicates that our object has actually got sub-object elements. If we open up this menu, you can see we've got a gizmo, which is this bounding box that actually surrounds our object, and that defines the area within which the bend modifier is actually going to have an effect. And then we have a center, which you can see here, and you can see I can actually move the center around independently of the gizmo. So you've got these two different elements here. Now at the moment I've actually got no effect here, so I need to actually put in a bend angle. So if I bend the teapot over like this, you can see obviously what the bend modifier does. It's pretty obvious. And I can actually grab the center now and I can move it around, and you'll actually see what an effect it has. So you can see that as I move the center around, the center point of the bend is actually changing. So that's pretty cool. We can do the same thing with the gizmo. If I grab the gizmo, I can actually move the gizmo here, there, and we can move it around in three-dimensional space anywhere you wish. And that obviously modifies the way a modifier takes its effect on our objects. So as you can see, it's quite possible to actually modify these parameters while I'm in sub-object mode. You don't actually have to come out of it, because in this case the panel here is not actually expanded to show any sub-parameters, because there actually aren't any. It's as simple as having just a transform that you can actually grab and move around. If we go back to our edit poly, you can see that as we click on each sub-object here, our actual rollout here changes to represent the different parameters that we actually have for each one of those sub-object types. So as you can see, it's actually context sensitive in that case. I'll just click off vertices there. So as you can see, the stack is actually a pretty fast and flexible interface to procedural workflow. We have the ability to quickly assign new modifiers with it, after which we can also quickly change their order via drag and drop. And you can see that if I actually drag this here, you can actually see I'm putting the bend after the edit poly, or I can put the bend before. I cannot actually put the bend before the base geometry. That actually doesn't make any sense. You know, the base geometry is what's acted upon. So I could put the bend modifier up here. Again, if I put another modifier on, say for instance a twist, we'll just go down here and put a twist on. Just twist that around. And again, you know, you can see we've got these sub-objects, the gizmo in the center again. Now we'll have a completely different result if we actually reorder things here. If I grab the twist and put it before the bend, you can see you have this result. And obviously if we put the bend before the twist, we get a different result again. So as you can see, you can reorder the stack simply by dragging and dropping elements. We can also, as we covered earlier, we can also just mute modifiers simply by clicking on the light bulb here, as you can see. So I could switch off each one of these. So we're back to the original object. And so on and so forth. So now we have a basic idea of how the stack works. Let's run through these buttons again and see what each one of these does in this particular context. The first button is the pin stack button. What that actually allows us to do is, if we click on each element in the stack, if we click on the base object, we're shown the base object parameters. If we click on the edit poly, the rollouts here change to represent the editable poly parameters. The bend modifier, we get the same thing, we get the bend parameters. Twist, same thing again. Now in certain circumstances you may actually want to tweak some parameters in another modifier, or on another, or actually work with another object, move it around and so forth, and have the parameters here for a particular modifier actually still displayed. And that's what the pin stack button allows us to do. So I'll show you how that works now. If, as an example, if we wanted to keep focus on this bend modifier here and we wanted to be able to see these parameters at all times, if I clicked on another object like this pyramid, you can see immediately this panel is actually focused on the pyramid, and the parameters for it have actually changed here to the pyramid parameters, as you can see. So if I click on here, I go to the bend modifier, and then I click on pin stack. Now I can actually click on other objects, and you can see the focus is maintained in here. We're not actually losing. I can click on the background and actually have nothing selected, and you can see we maintain our focus on this bend modifier. Obviously if I want to lose that focus, I can actually unpin the stack just by clicking on that button again. The next option, let's actually add one more modifier to our stack just to make it a little bit more obvious what's actually happening here. I'll make this twist maybe a little bit more subtle, and I'll drag this freeform deformation down. Go into sub-object mode. You've got these control points which actually allow you to deform the object. In this case I'm actually going to scale these together just to bring them together easily, and pull that down. And if I go to sub-object mode now, I'm back with the teapot. I'm actually, in this case, I'm going to actually mute this edit poly modifier here, and I'm going to go down to the basic teapot, and I'm actually going to crank up its tessellation values a little bit more. There we go. So now you can see we have the full result of our stack at the end here. Now, what if we wanted to actually go in at any one point of the stack and see what a particular modifier was doing, everything that led up to that point as well, but we didn't want to see anything that actually went on after it? Well, this is where the next button comes in, and this is the show end result toggle on and off. At the moment, as you can see, it's actually turned on. So if I click on the bend modifier, you can see the teapot doesn't change. It's actually exactly the same. I can click on the FFD and the twist, and in each case, even though the parameters are changing here, the actual end result of the teapot in the viewport isn't actually updated.